This is Classical Kids Story Time from American Public Media. I'm Steve. This is the story of Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Once upon a time, there were three bears who lived in a house in a forest. There was a great big father bear, a mother bear who was sort of middle-sized, and a tiny baby bear. One morning, Mama Bear made hot oatmeal for the bears to eat. I'll bet you didn't know that bears love oatmeal. Well, when Mama Bear made it on this morning, it was actually too hot at first. So the bears decided to go for a walk in the forest to let it cool off. On this beautiful autumn morning, someone else was taking a walk in the forest as well. It was a young girl, and her name was Goldilocks. Goldilocks loved to explore. She always wore the best athletic shoes for walking, and she carried a backpack over her shoulders that contained everything she needed. There was her water bottle, a pocket for her smartphone, a change of mud boots just in case the path got muddy, and always a few bags of her favorite snack crackers, which were, of course, goldfish. On this morning, though, Goldilocks had wandered so deeply into the forest that her cell phone just didn't seem to be getting any signal, so she couldn't use the map to figure out where she was. As she wandered and wandered, she realized that not only was she lost, but that she'd already finished all the goldfish in her backpack. Hungry and tired, she thought it might be a good idea to sit down and figure things out. Just then, she saw up ahead the house of the three bears. Now, remember, the bear family had left their house for a morning walk of their own, and they'd left the door wide open. Goldilocks walked up to the front door and peeked in. She saw a table with three chairs. One large chair, one middle-sized chair, and one small chair. On the table were three bowls of oatmeal, one large bowl, one medium-sized bowl, and one small bowl. Goldilocks went up to the bowls on the table and gave them a big sniff. Oh boy, this is the maple and brown sugar kind. Goldilocks sat down at the great big chair and took a spoonful of the oatmeal.
Ow!
But it was just too hot to eat. So she sat down at the medium-sized chair. She moved the bowl up close to herself, picked up the spoon, and took a bite. And she was surprised to find that this bowl was too cold. So she thought, I'll try this last one. After all, it seems to be the kids' bowl. She sat down and tried a bite. Well, what do you know? This oatmeal was just right. Goldilocks finished the entire bowl. It was so good. She felt very nice and full after eating, and she pushed the chair away from the table to get up. But the little chair was fragile, and with that one little scoot, the chair cracked into pieces, and Goldilocks fell straight down onto the floor in a jumble of chair parts that flew everywhere. Ouch! She got up and dusted herself off. Now she had a tummy full of warm oatmeal. She was a little rattled from this chair collapsing underneath her, and all this, combined with the fact that she'd been walking all morning, made her feel really quite tired. Maybe what I need, she thought, is just to sit down for a few minutes and rest before I continue my walk. So Goldilocks walked into the living room, and sure enough, there was a nice big sofa. It would make a perfect place to stretch out, she thought. But before she sat down, something else caught her eye. There, sitting right on the bookcase, was a big stereo system. Why, it's just like the one at my grandparents' house, she thought. There were huge speakers, shiny silvery boxes with ginormous knobs, and best of all, record albums. She was familiar with those because her grandparents had those too. Why, I know, I'll put on some music to help me relax. First, she picked out a record that said in big letters on the front, "The William Tell Overture by Rossini." She placed it on the record player and put the needle down on the spinning album. Whoa, she thought, that's cool and all. Kind of sounds like a galloping horse. Maybe even a whole herd of horses, with cowboys on them. I like cowboys and cowgirls and all, but that might not exactly be resting music, she thought. So she took the record off the record player and picked out a different one. The next one said, "The Piano Music of Eric Satie." Oh my, this one is beautiful, she thought, but it actually might be too soft. I wouldn't want to fall asleep here in these people's house. After all, I don't know them, and they don't know me, and I've already eaten their oatmeal, which was not exactly polite, so I probably shouldn't be here for too long. So she put this record away and picked out one more album from the shelf. This one was marked Gran Partita, the Serenade for Winds by Mozart, and she dropped the needle right down in the middle. Oh, wow, this is perfect, she thought. Not too loud, not too quiet, just right. And you know what? This is actually really beautiful, she thought. Goldilocks moved over to the sofa and stretched out, and she continued listening. As the clarinets and horns played, she thought maybe she could hear birdsong. It seemed to sound just like a walk through the woods, peaceful but also kind of stimulating. It's quiet, but also there are little things that you notice, like the different shaped leaves on the trees and the little critters that scurry about. Squirrels and rabbits and birds, too. The thing about walking in the woods sometimes is that the animals just seem to be so happy, living together, getting along, minding their business. The piece of music came to its end on the record player. And suddenly, all was quiet in the house. Quiet, that is, except for the sound of snoring. Goldilocks was asleep. She hadn't meant to fall asleep, but there she was, sacked out on the couch. A couch in a house where, you might recall, 3 bears lived. Well, those bears were now finished with their walk, and at that very moment, they were just coming back, very hungry to eat some oatmeal. First through the door was Papa Bear. He walked up to his chair and saw that it was scooted out, and his spoon had been moved. "Somebody's been sitting in my chair," he growled, "and they've been eating my oatmeal." Mama Bear went to her chair and saw that someone had been there, too. "Somebody's been sitting in my chair," Mama Bear said in a soft voice, "and they've been eating my oatmeal." Finally, Baby Bear walked over to his chair, or what was left of his chair. "Somebody's been sitting in my chair," Baby Bear said, "and they broke it." Then he looked at his bowl and he saw that it was completely empty. "And my oatmeal is all gone." Baby Bear started to cry. Mama Bear tried to console Baby Bear, while Papa Bear growled a low growl. He was not happy about the situation. That's when Papa Bear looked over into the living room and noticed that the little lights on his vintage stereo were on, and that the dust cover on his turntable was up. "Nobody touches my stereo," Papa Bear thought. He walked slowly and quietly over to the stereo, and that's when he got really angry. "Who has been pulling out my record albums?" Papa Bear roared. The first one that he noticed was his recording of Rossini's William Tell Overture. That one was his favorite. "Somebody's been listening to my favorite piece of music," Papa Bear roared. Mama Bear set down Baby Bear and walked over to the stereo. She saw that her favorite album had been pulled out too. It was the piano music of Eric Satie. She used to put that record on when Baby Bear was a newborn and she would rock him to sleep at night. "Somebody's been listening to my favorite piece of music," Mama Bear said. At this point, Baby Bear had a suspicion where this was going, and he had a bad feeling about it. Still, he walked over to the records, and he looked down, and he saw it. Mozart. Mozart was his favorite composer because Mozart was famous for being the boy composer. He started writing music when he was still just a kid, and Baby Bear loved that about Mozart. Well, sure enough, just like Baby Bear predicted, his record had been subjected to the worst fate of all. "Somebody's been listening to my favorite piece of music," Baby Bear said, "and it's still on the record player." Papa Bear looked around, and that's when he noticed that Mama's favorite throw blanket had been pulled down off the side of the sofa and was spread out all over the couch cushions, and somebody seemed to be under that blanket. Baby Bear walked up to the blanket. With his little paw, he pulled on the corner and turned down the cover to reveal Goldilocks, who was snoring away. The three bears at the same time growled a loud berry growl. "A human girl," they said. Goldilocks woke up with a start. "Ah, it's bears!" she screamed. She'd not expected bears to be living in this house with a table and chairs and oatmeal and a stereo and record albums. Goldilocks jumped up from the sofa, grabbed her backpack, and made a mad dash for the door. But just as she was about to get there, Baby Bear spoke up. "Stop," he said. "Wait a minute." For some reason, Goldilocks did stop. She didn't know why, because, after all, she was cornered in a house with three bears in it. "Did you like the Mozart?" Baby Bear asked. Goldilocks had not expected this to be the question. Indeed, she didn't think the story was going to go this way at all. But it made her feel safe, and so she spoke. "I did," Goldilocks said. "I thought it was really pretty. It kind of made me feel relaxed and excited at the same time. It made me happy." "That's what I like about it too," said Baby Bear. "And did you know that the guy who wrote it was famous for being a genius when he was a kid, like us?" Goldilocks didn't know this, but it made her like the music even more. "What I like about it was that it sounded like a happy forest," she said, "like animals living together and getting along." That's great, Baby Bear said. You know, you're right. It does kind of sound like that. Papa Bear and Mama Bear listened to this conversation, and it made them very proud of their little baby bear. They still weren't happy about Goldilocks eating their food and breaking their chair, but they were coming around to Goldilocks. And so at that moment, Mama Bear spoke up. Perhaps you two might like to keep listening to music for a little while. Why, thank you. That's very nice of you, Goldilocks said. Baby Bear felt the same. Awesome, he said. I've got some more stuff to play for you that you might like. For the rest of that afternoon, Baby Bear and Goldilocks listened to music. Baby Bear continued playing his favorites from Mozart, and every now and then his parents would call out some requests too. And as Goldilocks and the three bears enjoyed their day together, they found that just like in Baby Bear's favorite piece by Mozart, they were just like the animals of the forest, getting along in perfect, friendly harmony. The end. Thanks for listening to Classical Kids Storytime from APM, American Public Media.